Elden Ring has been out for 2.5 years already, and it's taken me just about that long to figure out how to play the game. My name is James, and I started this channel simply because I love video games. If that sounds like you, please subscribe to my channel so that you can see more videos just like this one. I don't typically play hard games. Usually when a game is described as Soulsborne, Souls-like, Souls anything, I steer away because I don't typically like hard games. Over the last month, I've put about 90 hours into Elden Ring, and I've been having a really great time with it. This video is going to be tips for people like me that do not typically play hard games but want to try Elden Ring. So the first thing that I've got for you is that you need to explore and experiment, which this is kind of two things that are lumped together, but I wanted to include both of them. One of my first times playing the game, I was so focused on bosses and bosses and bosses. The way that I would play is that I would get to a boss and I would fight it and I would die, and then I would find an enemy that I can kill and kill that same enemy thousands of times to level up, and then I would go back and defeat that boss, and then I would look up where the next boss was and go straight there and not be able to beat it and just repeat that process, and that's not fun. Exploration is definitely important, that if you go into this game having a bot, like obviously the pillars of the game are going to be the bosses, but if you think you're supposed to go one direction, like look a different way, be like, I'm going to go explore this area over here. I'm going to go into this dark room over here and see if there is anything in there. Maybe there's a strong enemy that you can kill for some runes, or a chest that will have a unique item in it. And the second half of this tip is to experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment with different attack methods, different weapons, different abilities, different armor pieces. Anything that you find, consider trying it out, unless you are just absolutely certain that it's not going to be for you. Also, it's good to experiment because there's lots of different ways that you can approach enemies in this game too. You might find that when you're going up on a group of enemies, you might find that the stealth approach is better for you, or you might against a group of enemies try to do different attacks that have like an area of effect so that you can hit multiple enemies at a time, and experimenting with that stuff and finding out what feels the most natural for you is gonna boost your enjoyment of the game. My next tip is to go up 2 levels at a time. On my first 2 play attempts, I was so boss focused. I was so focused on the amount of damage that I was doing and leveling up certain skills to be able to use different weapons to do more damage that I completely neglected vigor, which is the stat that is tied to your health. What I did on my third attempt, which I would highly recommend, is always go up 2 levels at a time. Put 1 level into vigor, and then put 1 level into anything you want. You don't really have to put 2 levels into vigor. You don't have to go up 2 levels and put 1 into vigor at a time, but the important thing really is that you're not neglecting any of these important stats like vigor or your stamina or your like magic power, whatever the hell the stat tied to that is. Upgrade your stats in a way that is going to be compatible with the way that you're wanting to play the game. Right along those same lines, number 3 is to ask for help. The game has a tiny tutorial right at the beginning, but as somebody who has never played a FromSoft game before, there was lots of stuff that I didn't understand what was going on, and there were things even 40 or 50 or even 90 hours into the game that I'm discovering, like, really? You could do that? That would have made so much, like, a lot easier. So if you don't really play these, if you don't play a lot of these kind of games, there might be mechanics of it that you don't fully understand. So when you're struggling with a particular boss or a particular enemy, or something is happening and you don't really know why, ask for help. Find somebody else who either you could go on Reddit, you could go on like a Discord server, go at a YouTube video. But I've found that people that like Elden Ring love to talk about it, which, let's not forget, if you're not a Souls player, but you're looking to get into Elden Ring, everybody talking about Elden Ring is probably what got you into the game in the first place. If something is happening to you repeatedly, I think it's worth bringing up to somebody and being like, hey, somebody that you can try Googling it, which isn't as fun, being like, hey, I'm getting knocked down like way too easily in combat. Like, what's going on? And they'll probably tell you like, oh, you need heavier armor that will upgrade this number on your that will increase this number on your stat screen. This number is directly tied to you not getting knocked over. Or, hey, like, I'm not getting knocked over that easily, but when I do get knocked over, it takes me forever. It takes me so long to stand back up that I might as well just like die while I'm laying on the ground. Asking those kind of questions will be very beneficial to you. It'll be fun to talk with other people, and it'll just generally make the game more enjoyable for you. Before I give my top 2, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you love about Elden Ring. And, I'm no Elden Ring expert, but if you have any questions or need any additional tips, drop a comment and I'll do my best. Number 4 is learn the lingo. There's lots of like words and language. There's lots of language and there's an Elden Ring speak that's being thrown around in this game that if you're like me, you will not understand. My first couple times attempting the game, I would hear something that I didn't understand and I would be like, I play a lot of games. I feel like I got this. I don't really need to know what that means. I'm here to tell you, you do need to know what that means. If you find a talisman or a weapon and it has a special effect and you don't know what it means, it doesn't mean that's not important. It means that you need to figure out what that means. So for me, the number that I talked about earlier that keeps you from getting knocked over in combat, it was one of those things. It was tied on armor pieces. It would have a rating, and I didn't know what that word meant. And I didn't know what that word meant, and I just ignored it. And I guess the real tip here is that don't ignore things if you don't know what they mean. I guess you can kind of lump this back in with number 3 too. If you don't know what things mean, ask somebody else for help. Once again, we're going with the ask for help method. Google it. Especially different status effects can be a little bit confusing. All right, and so that brings us to the final tip. And this is going to be cliche, but the final tip really is just to have fun. So you see people online saying like, oh, you shouldn't use summons, you shouldn't use magic, you shouldn't use whatever, you shouldn't use such and such weapon because it's too powerful, you shouldn't use this because it makes the game too easy. But if using those things is what leads to you enjoying the game, then you should use them. Those things are in the game for a reason. Fortunately, with Elden Ring, the get good bros are not as loud and obnoxious as they are with other FromSoft games. But at the end of the day, it's a video game, and video games are supposed to be a form of enrichment, whether that's just being fun or engaging or challenging, and that might be different for different people. So my last piece of advice is just play the game in whatever way is fun for you. That's all I've got for this video. Please make sure to check back on Friday for my spoiler-free review of Elden Ring. As always, the best way to keep up with me is on Twitter and on Instagram at James_Solar. Thanks, guys.